How did Ron DeSantis go from Donald Trump's prime challenger to struggling for second place?
Ron DeSanctimonious at 10%.
The candidate who was once seen in Republican circles as the more sensible alternative to Trump quickly turned into the biggest political disappointment of the century.
I'm not a candidate, so we'll see if and when that changes.
A governor who was going to map his success in Florida to the whole United States now can't even get the biggest donors he had in Florida to support his presidential campaign. All of this happened in a very short amount of time. Some of his supporters are jumping ship. Some are praying he turns things back around. And others are left wondering, what the hell happened to DeSantis? He's extremely popular among Floridians, but many people do not realize that DeSantis actually just barely became the governor of the state. In 2018, he beat Andrew Gillum by only 0.4% of the votes, a tiny margin that was even disputed and fought by his contenders.
Some uncertainty around the total number of votes.
But nonetheless, DeSantis got the victory and quickly catapulted himself to popularity among Floridians. So much so that by the next year, he became one of the most popular governors in the country and in Florida's history.
Governor Ron DeSantis handily won his re-election last night by the largest margin of any Florida governor in 40 years.
The Republican governor got reelected by a landslide in 2022, beating his opponent, Charlie Crist, in almost every county and demographic.
I think it's a mark of success when you come in winning by 32,000 votes, you work hard for 4 years, and they re-elect you by 1.5 million votes.
So what made the governor's approval ratings skyrocket? Well, in a world of rhinos and Republicans that serve as mere speed bumps to the liberal agenda, DeSantis not only said the things that voters wanted to hear, but followed through and executed them to a T.
Okay, let's see my to-do list. Go to work, go to work, go to work, go to work, go to work.
He was able to take this much action because he fired many of the people that represented Florida's swamp, as he called it, and he replaced them with individuals that supported his policies. Not to mention, he has done all this while being relentlessly smeared by the media.
The corporate press has done, as I've suggested, more to make you a household name than anything else in America. It is truly incredible how they have turned every narrative they think against you, and then it's as though they are Sideshow Bob stepping on rakes. The most recent iteration of this was, of course, what they called the so-called Don't Say Gay bill.
The Florida bill made a ton of national noise and really showed how much the establishment hates DeSantis. The so-called Don't Say Gay bill, which doesn't have the word gay in it, passed in March of 2022, and the media went crazy.
The Don't Say Gay bill.
The Don't Say Gay bill.
Don't say gay.
Even the White House was coming after DeSantis.
Why are Florida leaders deciding they need to discriminate against kids who are members of the LGBTQI community?
But these attacks served as a badge of honor for the governor. His support only grew stronger as he refused to back down. The bill, despite the media smear campaign, was supported by Florida and most of America. Coincidentally, the bill would lead to a huge public lawsuit from Disney, which may have critically damaged his political campaign. But we'll get to that in a second. This bill was just one of the most recent reasons why DeSantis gained popularity. The first thing that really separated him from the pack was his actions during the pandemic.
We will never do any of these lockdowns again.
The state of Florida is generally seen as the freest state in America these days. This is largely due to the Florida governor's actions and outspokenness against COVID lockdowns. Since the pandemic, DeSantis has passed laws banning local lockdowns, local mask mandates, local vaccine mandates, and gain-of-function research in the states. Here is a map of all the states that have banned those things.
I can tell you this, as your president, I will never let the deep state bureaucrats lock you down. You don't take somebody like Fauci and coddle him. You bring Fauci in, you sit him down, and you say, Anthony, you are fired.
Ron DeSantis seems to be the unofficial leader of the anti-woke agenda. I mean, the man literally signed a bill titled Stop Woke Act and has a Stop Woke handout on Florida's official government website.
And we reject woke ideology.
I view the wokeness as a form of cultural Marxism.
No taxpayer dollars should be used to teach our kids
to hate our country or to hate each other. We fight the woke in the legislature. We fight the woke in the schools. We fight the woke in the corporations. We will never, ever surrender to the woke mob. Florida is where woke goes to die.
But he didn't stop at education. He also went after the woke invasion of corporations. He ended the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives in Florida. Florida is now a freedom hub, a haven for those who had their company hurt by lockdowns, those fed up with DEI initiatives, or voters sick and tired of blue states. Since the pandemic, nearly 400,000 voters have moved to Florida, and that data was taken in 2022. So the current numbers are likely way higher. It's not an exaggeration to say that Florida is in high demand, and Ron DeSantis is responsible for its success. All of these actions not only built him a massive following in Florida, but built him momentum to become the next president of the United States. At this point, DeSantis was winning the war on woke, a war which made him cross paths with his biggest opponent yet, Disney. This marked the beginning of his downfall. Remember that Don't Say Gay bill that I mentioned earlier? Well, it turns out that Disney was caught in the crosshairs of the governor's actions. Let me run you down the Cliff Notes version of what happened. In March of 2022, DeSantis signed the so-called Don't Say Gay bill. Disney CEO Bob Chapek largely remained silent on the issue, declining to take a stance. After public pressure, he released a company-wide memo, which was extremely lukewarm on the issue. The memo was not well received by left-wing activists. Disney's own employees even organized a workers' protest to pressure Disney to take a stronger stance. Many protesters were holding signs saying, "Disney say gay." Again, the bill doesn't have the word gay in it at all. After this round of public backlash, Bob Chapek tried to redeem himself and quell the protests. He did this by releasing a second statement begging for forgiveness from the woke mob, saying, quote, "You needed me to be a stronger ally in the fight for human rights, and I let you down. I am sorry." Totally a sincere response and not a statement trying to quell the protests and appease his masters. DeSantis saw the statement and immediately retaliated with a statement of his own.
In Florida, our policy is going to be based on the best interest of Florida citizens, not on the musing of woke corporations.
War had officially been declared, and it didn't take long for it to get ugly. DeSantis escalated his attacks against Disney by signing a bill into law officially stripping Disney of a special self-governing status in the area around its Orlando theme parks, something which the park had since the 1960s. Disney was losing the battle, and Bob Chapek took the heat for it. He was fired and replaced with a new leader, another Disney Bob Iger. Iger took Disney off their back foot and launched an attack back at DeSantis, suing him for trying to take away Disney's special legal status. This battle is still ongoing today and has drawn a bit of controversy within the Republican Party. Sure, Disney has been supportive of woke ideologies, but they also provide Florida with tens of thousands of jobs. They've made Florida one of the biggest tourist destinations in the world and pay Florida more than $1 billion in taxes every year. Disney knows this, and Iger and his troops aren't backing down without a fight. In fact, the CEO canceled the construction of a Disney office complex in Orlando that would have cost roughly $1 billion. All this money in taxes and jobs would normally benefit the Floridian people, but now it could really affect Florida's pockets. But to most Americans, his wins vastly outweighed anything that could have been seen as a loss. Then came his bid for the White House. He tried to ride his momentum as governor into his presidential campaign, but a series of bad moves turned him from Donald Trump's biggest threat to debating Gavin Newsom.
I mean, why is he debating a guy who's not even running for president when he's running for president?
Where did things go so wrong?
I mean, let's face it, Ron. If the campaign was going well, you wouldn't be on this show.
Oh, that's not true.
First, we must note that we can't put all the blame on DeSantis himself. His campaign team is not doing so hot. For starters, their social media strategy doesn't exactly scream president.
In the future, can transgender women compete in Miss Universe?
Yes.
Make America great again.
Psych!
DeSantis also continuously displays awkward demeanor and a presence that people just don't resonate with. Now, look, I don't really care about all this stuff. Admittedly, how the man laughs is very unimportant, but stuff like this does affect how a candidate is perceived by voters. And there are countless examples of this.
To get back in the business of creating a more peaceful world. Please clap.
We're going to South Dakota and Oregon and Washington and Michigan. And then we're going to Washington, D.C. to take back the White House. Yeah!
Albert Einstein issued one of my most favorite quotes in the history of the spoken word.
How we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
Oh, man.
That's good.
Really good.
DeSantis started his social media campaign on the wrong foot right from the beginning and hasn't recovered since. I don't know if you remember this, but he tried to launch his presidential campaign during a Twitter space with Elon Musk. But because of some technical glitches, it went horribly, to say the least.
We are kind of melting the servers.
It kept crashing and lagging, and by the time the space was up and running, there were only 250,000 people listening.
Well, it's certainly an incredible honor to have Governor DeSantis make this stark announcement.
Which is not a lot compared to other candidates' presence on the platform. DeSantis' team also posted this video attacking Trump.
Why did you feel unable to fire Fauci? Personally, you're not allowed to.
Every time he goes on television, there's always a bomb, but there's a bigger bomb if you fire him.
Let me pause it right there. Notice how the video says real-life Trump. Well, these are in fact not pictures of real-life Trump. They are AI-generated images. And as you probably guessed, voters hated this.
But to intentionally run an ad with fake images to smear your political opponent is crossing the line directly, and it opens the door to a very dark future.
This is just a terrible way to swing Trump voters to your side. Trump has grown strong by being lied about and smeared in the media constantly. And DeSantis' campaign strategy is to do exactly that. DeSantis is so quick to call out mainstream media for fake news and deception, yet used the same tactics in his campaign against Trump.
Well, well, well. How the turntables.
And starting beef with Donald Trump is never a good campaign strategy.
Ron DeSanctimonious.
All these factors are dragging DeSantis further and further from the White House. Take New Hampshire, for example. DeSantis' poll numbers here are a telling sign. He dropped from 37% to 10% in less than 3 months. Even Nikki Haley is faring better than him. The number one thing you want to avoid on the campaign trail is the appearance of backsliding. The last thing voters and donors want to see is you falling off. And that is exactly what is happening to DeSantis. DeSantis' approval rating tanked after the first presidential debate. On September 1st, it came out that DeSantis' unofficial campaign strategist, Jeff Rowe, went through states saying that DeSantis needed $50 million immediately. This late in the game, $50 million is a big ask, and not one that screams confidence. As of now, of the 50 top donors who contributed to DeSantis' 2022 gubernatorial re-election campaign, only 16 have contributed to his Never Back Down super PAC. Another 8 have donated to his presidential campaign directly, but still, that's less than half of his top donors who supported him just last year.
When you hear that the super PACs are behind in their support, that means you're losing your big donors because super PACs are unlimited. If you wanted to give anything now as a citizen, you can only give $3,300 as an individual. Beyond that, you have to give money into the super PAC. And we've heard the stories about this billionaires with Trump, these 2 billionaires are with DeSantis. And for them to be going out and saying we need $5 million a month to sustain Iowa and we need $50 million right now is an incredibly bad sign because the super PAC money is usually locked in early. You have who your supporters going to be. This is not good.
A perfect example of this is Governor Bruce Rauner. He was one of DeSantis' biggest supporters, donating nearly $1 million to his re-election bid in 2022. Now, Rauner says he's planning to back one of DeSantis' competitors, Nikki Haley. Ouch.
honestly, every time I hear you, I feel a little bit dumber for what you say.
While DeSantis might not be the American people's pick for president, Floridians still love him as their governor. Sure, it might be a long shot, but it is possible for him to win the presidency, despite all of these mishaps. What's more likely is that the governor will soon return to his state of Florida, grow in popularity, and be a front runner in 2028. But as we've all seen before, polls and predictions aren't always accurate. So, what do you think?